Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, at the outset, please allow me to extend my sincere thanks and appreciations to the International Euro-Asia Press Fund for organizing this parallel event on the conflict and right of children. Please also accept my apologies for not being there with you today, as I had to attend another event of the same nature here in the Aix. Ladies and gentlemen, without any doubt, war has different effects on the human societies. One of these issues that can be of a serious concern for the humanitarian agencies during an armed conflict is, of course, the vulnerability of the children. The shocking statistic about the effect of armed conflict on children around the world is increasing day by day. And we still have millions of children living in countries with armed conflict. This issue needs the support of all those organizations responsible and requires a serious attention of the international conventions, particularly the Convention on the Right of Child. We agree that it's the adults that go on war, but it's children who are affected the most and who suffer throughout their life cycle. During the last decades, more than 10 million children are estimated to have been killed as a result of the war. The situation resulting from the armed conflict affects primarily children because of their vulnerability, and do so in many different ways. Children are often alone and helpless. Some become child soldiers, while others are forced into exploitation. The fundamental rights of these children are shamelessly flouted for the benefit of barbarous and cruel acts. Many of them remain deeply traumatized, wounded, or even disabled. The traumatic experience can have long-lasting effect on the life of children, and their physical, emotional, intellectual, social, as well as spiritual well-being continue to be under a great risk. This is not only in their country of origin, but continue to be the case when they leave the country of origin and seek protection elsewhere. In the course of my travel around, I have seen so many children, so many underage children, exploited or forced to bake in metro and train stations all over Europe. One can directly see the pain and burden they carry in their small and fragile bodies. Armed conflict can take over societies, cutting off access to healthcare and other vital infrastructures, preventing children from going to school and splitting up families. Children around the world are still recruited into armed forces. Rape and sexual assault against children continue to be used as a weapon of war. In addition, conflict have further deprived children from their support system. For example, from their families, from their communities, educators, health workers, etc., that has further intensified their problems. As the characteristics of armed conflict are changing, impact of conflict on the children have similarly changed over the decades. Children are no longer the bystanders of conflicts, but they are being targeted deliberately. In Afghanistan, for example, children were disproportionately affected by the intensifying conflict. Although Afghanistan may not get much attention from the media as more recent conflict zones such as Syria, but having suffered 4 decades of armed conflict, there are more than 8 million people who are in the need of humanitarian assistance right now. 1/3 of them are children. The number of child casualties verified by the United Nations has further raised in the last 2 years and has reached the highest number ever recorded. 1 in 4 civilian casualties in 2015 was a child, and this percentage has further deteriorated in 2016. The majority of the verified cases in Afghanistan were attributed to the Taliban and other armed forces. The Taliban and other anti-government groups continue to recruit children for combat and suicide attacks. In Afghanistan, intimidation by all parties to the conflict continued to cause harm to the healthcare and teachers. It further reduces the availability of medical aid and limits children's access to essential health and educational services. Conflict-related violence not only put Afghan children at risk of harm, but also limit their fundamental rights to education and healthcare. Thus, there's a strong need for both the government and its international partners in Afghanistan to redouble their efforts in order to enable children, particularly girls, by providing them free and safe access to medical service and education. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this has to stop, and we have to force our governments in order to build up a protective environment for the children by ensuring that displaced children access the same level of public services as other children, and the crime against children are addressed, and the children-friendly procedures are developed for children's involvement in truth and justice-seeking process. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, since I cannot take any questions right now, please do not hesitate to write them.